Okay, so now let's understand how applications are built. Now, in the old days and currently today, legacy apps, when you have an application, let's say a website, you basically have that app stored on some server. And that particular server has also the backend and also the frontend. So you have like a language and like an application, which basically in that particular code, in that particular project, you have also the backend and also the frontend. Now we can do this with Spring. We can do this with Spring MVC, but we are not going to learn this in this course because this is like an old approach. And what's the downside of this approach? For example, if some piece of your application crashes, your whole application crashes. And also these applications very tightly coupled, which means that the components between them are very tightly integrated with one another. And one small to the application will mess the entire application if that small isn't good. Now, how usually applications are built today is that the front end is separate from the back end. So we have the front end, which is built in whatever language you want. It's JavaScript, React, library, Angular framework, and so on. And you have the backend also with what language you want. Java, PHP, Python, and so on. And the way that the frontend and backend communicates with one another is by the backend is sending data to the frontend, and also the frontend is sending data to the backend using this particular formats. JSON, which basically stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and XML, which is something like Extensive Markup Language. Now, the most common way that data is being sent is using JSON. So in this particular course, what we will learn, we will focus only on the backend, because with Java and Spring, you will build backend application, and we will not focus on the front end because this is not a full stack application, but we will do everything from the back end and everything with JSON, with data, with building APIs, which basically the front end can consume. Now this is way better because if your backend crashes, your front end doesn't crash. And not just only that. Based on the backend, you expose some endpoints, and we will see about this, which basically you can send data to the frontend, and the frontend can be everything. It can be a website, it can be a mobile, it can be a desktop application. And basically all this application can consume this particular data and can display it on the screen. Now, right now, there is even more decoupling of the application, and the backend is being split into different functionalities and different services. So you have a service which basically has the API server, and API stands for Application Programming Interface, but it's just a general term. So you have the service which basically sends you the data. You have like a service which stands for the email. Let's say your application using email. You have a service which stands for file service. Depends on your application. So basically you split your entire backend logic into multiple services, and this is what it's called today microservice. And every service is being stored on a particular server and can even have its own database. And this is even more decoupling, because if the email server doesn't work, the application doesn't crash. Your API still works, your file service still works, only the email doesn't work. And even if we learn this part or the second part, with Spring Boot you can build this type of application. And with Spring Boot you can build these APIs, these very powerful APIs, which the front end can consume. So that's why I wanted to show you what we will learn in this course. We will learn the second option and the third option, because this is the new way, let's say, that applications are being built, and very few applications will be built today like a monolithic. This is called a monolithic, which basically stands for mono, one application has all the things in there, and this is what's called microservice architecture. So this is what we are going to learn.